Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of CantinaMX Football Podcast. I'm your host tonight, Jaime Landeros. Tonight is a special night. We have a full panel and a special guest. We're going to be talking about Liga MX Femenil, maybe talk about the Preolímpico results and some of the Mexico friendlies that had just happened and are upcoming. Let's waste no time. All right, that's enough, TJ. We have Carlos Eustis joining us tonight. Thank you for hopping on our show. How you doing, man?
I'm good. I feel really official, like Siente tu Liga with the anthem of Liga MX, like to come in. It's like you're walking into the field. I was like, oh, those are good memories.
It's the closest, it's the closest authenticity we can get for now. And then joining us tonight, we got the Joel, Beto, and Ronaldo. How are we doing, gentlemen?
Yes, full house. So I'm doing good.
Yeah. Regarding that theme, Carlos, we were trying to get the. Have you ever heard the guy that does the sad flute, like from the Titanic?
Yes.
We were trying to get him to do the Liga MX theme, but with that sad flute type of. No luck. We couldn't get him. He was too expensive for us.
I was going to say, he became really popular. I mean, once you get into that kind of money, you don't look at the peasants.
Yeah, we're still peasants here. We can't afford that sound quality that he provides.
Through art.
That's awesome, guys. So the big topic for tonight is Liga MX Femenil. Yeah, it seems like Beto and Ronaldo and Joel all had some opinions on that. Go ahead.
Yeah. Let me give my because I got a simplistic view. Ronnie might have like more in-depth stuff, and then Carlos, of course, has the Carlos is where. I'm interested in getting the insight. So like so I guess Carlos, the whole discussion we were having was like in my eyes is like the business aspect of. I guess some people were saying that the feminine gets certain things or does not get certain things, certain luxuries that the men do, and not necessarily like Liga MX, but like in general, like worldwide women's soccer. Like I guess the airfare to travel, all the accommodations and all this stuff. So like in the business aspect, I look at what the income is and what the revenue the women are bringing. And, if it's a business that you're trying to invest in for future gains, then that's one thing. But if it's, something that's not bringing in enough revenue, then you're sort of going in the red. And that's when I was, Eugene Rupinski wrote an article, and he deleted it for some reason. I think because it sort of brings a negative light on the financial aspect, the business aspect. He interviewed Lauren Fuentes from Santos. And she was saying that, like, one thing that was interesting, she said was that, and this was in 2019, so things probably changed, that they had the 300 capacity training stadium, which wasn't enough because they were getting 900 people per match, so they had to use the big stadium. It's not, in Torreon. So with 900 people at 20 pesos per ticket, they were getting 18,000 pesos. But the lights cost 80,000 per hour. So you're already in the red. So that's like the argument here is Liga MX or maybe other clubs on the feminine side are having to invest. They're having to use money, not from the revenue from the women's side, but from maybe the men's or whatever else. Sponsors, of course, help, and other types of things help out. So I just see it as a struggle. In my view, when you watch sports, you want to see sports at the highest level. And so that's why you don't really watch like U16 or you watch like the people that do it at the very highest level. And that's hard for, in my view, in the women's side. You want to see, like, you watch Mexico because you're from Mexico, or you watch the US because you're from the US. But the World Cup stage, the World Cup final, that's like the epitome. So that's sort of like the like my take from where things stand. And the WNBA has been around for a while. Struggle. I don't know that much things are going to change. I mean, there'll be some improvement, but I don't think it's going to blow up.
Yeah,
And I
but
don't even know if it's going to be a profitable business.
that's not how it works. Because if you really think about it, I don't know. Do any of you guys ever own a business? And again,
Ron.
we're being like completely honest. Like if
Yeah,
you run a
yeah.
business, when you start your business, you're never at a profit unless
Yeah.
you like discover las tostadas con frijoles. Like
Exactly.
there's very few things that just cash in. They don't. You invest in it, and it takes time to invest in it. So when you have a business, and the quickest example that I could think of is like you buy a food truck and you put that food truck where people don't see it, and you just have a food truck, and then people don't come, and you say, "Oh, listen, the business is not working." Then it's like, wait, but you're in an alley where nobody knows you're there. Yeah, okay. Have you invested in promotion? No. Have you invested in? There's a commercial out there. Have you invested in your social media? Have you invested in these things? No. And you're gonna shut down the business because it's not working? Yeah, I mean, I'm in the red. It's like, of course you're in the red because you're not making it visible. Because in this case, you're having an entertainment revenue stream. This is entertainment.
Yeah.
This is not necessarily a product. It's more like a service. And in this case, you're not putting light. There's enough light on it to even make it popular. And even then, you also have to think about it when the comparison is not fair, because if you really think about it, and this again, this are soccer teams, and that's why the WNBA and whatever, that's a different conversation. I actually don't have the numbers to see it, but in soccer, Barcelona is a team that has been existing for over 100 years. 100 years that they received investment from their investors. They had a ton of revenue from the sponsors. They had some of the best players in the world. They've been able to afford some of the best players in the world. And even then, in 2020, they came in red numbers. And in 2019, they brought in $950 million. And of those $950 million, only $10 million were in profit. So we're talking about that the best team in the world is not profitable. Because when you compare that to Walmart, who makes $325 million in 3 hours, Barcelona is not profitable. So that's the first thing.
Yeah,
and then, hold on. Well,
yeah, go ahead.
Sure. So then that's the first step. That's the business. Soccer as a business, it's not a good business. Most of the teams function. They do make some money. They manage a lot of cash flow, but they don't actually make money. That's not a thing. Usually the owners, what happens with PSG and what happens with Manchester City is that these people have so much disposable income that they just pour it in there. And even if they make little money, it doesn't matter, because that's a way to move their money. So that's the first thing in terms of economics of how soccer teams work. Having said that, a lot of the professional leagues in soccer, and let's focus on Mexico. Mexico has been a professional league since 1943. So that tells you that it's over 70 years that they've been able to receive and move income. And at some point, it might work, it might don't work. And in the last 3-4 years, they're actually been losing eyeballs, a lot of them. For what the league is, and for the amount of importance it has in Mexico, it has losing way too many eyeballs. On the other side, women's soccer is not a thing, because women's soccer, just as a World Cup, the first World Cup in the men's was played in 1930. The first World Cup for the women's was played in 1991. And until 1991, there was actually laws in Germany, in England, where women were not allowed to play soccer because they were women. So you're already not at the same level, like playing field. It's like saying like, oh, I sell burgers out of a cart, and McDonald's wants to shut me down. And it's like, but that's a multinational. I'm just like a small investor. So that's the first thing on the playing field. And second, once you already have that and the league's just starting, the Mexican league, La Liga Femenil, has been just in place for 4 years compared to the 70 years that it's been on the men's side. And even then, yes, they don't have huge follow. That's actually not correct. It's not that they make huge numbers in attendance, or they make huge numbers in how many eyeballs they get on television, but they've been able to sustain some growth in the past, in these 4 years. They've been able to grow not exponentially, but little by little. So what does that tell you? As a business, if you have something that is growing by 2%, 3%, you're actually making some of it. So you don't invest in it, if you don't put the eyeballs out there, if you're not going to make it be on television, if you're not going to put some advertising behind it, if you're going to make people know their stories and be connected to these people, then you can't say that it's not working. Unless you put all those things behind it, and then on that sustained movement of 3-4 years, it stops and it stays and people don't watch it and don't consume it at all, then you can say it's a failure. And then you can say, well, you know what? It's not even because you're not cashing in the same. And that's where we're at. The other thing is, by FIFA rules, if you want to have the 2026 World Cup, you needed to have a professional league. If you're going to call it a professional league, you have to make it sustainable even for the players. Because what's happening here is that by not making, and again, nobody's saying that they have to make the same money as Gignac. Like Katy Martinez doesn't have to make the same money as Gignac. Nobody's asking for that. And Tigres, actually, the players get paid well. They get paid a very significant amount of money for what it is, because obviously Tigres has a lot more disposable income, and it comes from FEMSA, it comes from Sinergia Deportiva, then you have Monterrey with Cemex, obviously Televisa is behind America, so you see these teams that they actually have more money, and it makes sense because the big parent company behind the team makes a lot of money, so it helps out. And nobody's asking for that. They just need to have, if you put the league together, and I will be okay if they said, like, for example, if Juarez said, I can't sustain this because I can't even sustain the men's, and they don't have Juarez, that's fine. But then if you have the 10, 12 teams that can afford it, they have, and you made that compromise, you have to make it a livable wage. Because what you're doing is that when you have players like Katy Martinez, like Allison, that they're all getting recognition, and this is money that you can sell, because you can sell it to Liverpool, you can sell it to Olympique Lyon. Like those are movements that are already happening. They're actually bringing money in. So if you have an Alison Gonzalez that it's 20 years old and you can sell it to Europe, that's where you're going to start making the money. But if you don't invest a little bit in it and make it that you don't lose those players, because those are your assets, you don't want to lose your assets. You want them to stay as professional players. And then the improvement will come little by little. But if you just don't pay them and don't let them live out of that, then eventually you're the one making it dissolve.
Yeah, I would just say, I'm trying to think of a comparison, and like you bring up the burgers. I think it's a little bit different. I think it's more like if you want to watch cars, or if you want to buy a car, and you want to buy, or what car would you rather have, like a Ferrari or like a Toyota, sort of that type of thing. And I don't mean this, like everything I'm saying, I don't mean it to be insulting or anything.
But is the same case with why you watch Mexican League if you watch in the Champions League?
Yeah, exactly. Like, and this sort of goes to like what you were saying about in Mexico. I think you said in Mexico, eyes are going off Liga MX, and I think that's because, well, this is sort of going off a different.
Is
topic,
it though?
Like, look at it's because
it is. Like, it is.
I want to watch the top leagues. If with globalization and the internet, I can see European leagues. I can see Ronaldo and all the best play. But my love for Mexico, I'm from Mexico. I'm gonna watch, Liga MX as well, because that's where I'm from, or whatever. A lot of people in Mexico, you now see, instead of an America or Chivas jersey, they have Real Madrid, they have Juventus, they have all these.
They have a half Mazatlan and half Chivas jersey.
They even wear the German national team, and they're all like speaking German and stuff down. And I'm just kidding, but that's
pura sangre de Alemania.
That's one thing. So like if you're going to invest in the business and you sort of have to say, okay, yeah, I'm going to, if I can expose it, if I can make it the best, I'm still going up against higher quality products, and there's nothing I can do to stop that. And I guess you counter that well, because you're saying that they don't want equal pay. You don't want to make the same as a Gignac and the top players. I get that, but then I hear Megan Rapinoe say, we've won 4 titles. Something that the U.S. hasn't, and that's like the biggest.
Over the place, man. Let me.
That's the biggest.
Let me step in, because they don't.
Let me finish this one last point, though. No, I'm trying not to go all over the place, because I'm trying to
already did.
Well, yes. So let me just finish this one point then, to finalize it all. So Rapinoe says, like sticking it to the man, like, I've got 4 titles, you have 0, and that's like the biggest false equivalency ever, though. So basically the point is that yeah, it is a business, and you need to do your best to expose it. If the League MX teams do, like Juarez or whatever, like you're saying, then great, they can do it, and it could be profitable. They can sell players, but it's not going to be like the biggest hits ever, and it could,
But
not
you
work
don't know.
out.
You don't know that.
I'm pretty sure. I mean, it's like saying, okay, why doesn't
That's the same
what,
thing they told Steve Jobs when he decided to make a computer and an
no,
iPad.
that's different though. That's different because a
No.
computer is the equivalent. His computer is the equivalent of
Yeah,
the
that's
Apple
now.
computer.
But in 1980, when that was not existent, and he said, "I'm gonna do this," they told him it's crazy,
No.
it's never gonna work.
No, but the Apple computer is that. Okay,
You're
we're
looking
talking,
at it in retrospect. It's really easy to.
No, not.
In journalism, we call it you have the morning paper. When you have the morning paper, it's really easy to see. And we're going to talk about it right now when the Paralympics is sitting. Right now, we can sit down and say all the things that the U.S. did wrong and why they're not in the Olympics. It's really easy to do that. But to say, how am I going to improve this Olympic team to make it to the next round, and you were in charge of that, the decisions you make, I can't judge them. Because I can only judge them when I see the final product. I cannot see it. I cannot see it in hindsight.
Fair enough.
I have to go back to the comparison of the cars. Like a Toyota is never going to compete with a Ferrari, no matter how much you promote the Toyota, no matter how much you talk about it.
That's not an equivalent either. Just what you're saying, because the as a consumer brand, Toyota sells a lot more than Ferraris. A lot more.
The difference is they're reaching they're different markets and targets that they're trying to reach. So it's not really an equivalency. But now, if I may here, it's a good thing you brought up that the league, the Mexican league, the has been around since '43, and in those since '43 to now, you have a men's first division that has never been, quote unquote, fully autonomous. And to date, we don't have 18 fully independent owners. When you go to the lower leagues, you've never had an independent lower division second.
Ron, you cut off there, buddy.
It's getting good. Well,
I will say it's not. I don't think it's about like trying to compete. Ferrari or I think they're just trying to be in the same space. They just want to be in the same parking lot and just exist together. My biggest thing with Liga MX Femenil is I understand that it's right now it's in development. Just like the Liga Expansión, we're just trying to get like the foundation and have them sustainable over a long course of time. I understand it's going to take a long time. I would say one thing just to raise awareness about the league is having these games on right before the men's games. I think that would help out. There's a lot of people that are looking forward to watching a Chivas America game, and why not put the femenil right before like in boxing, the undercard, like in a concert, and you have openers,
and you're gonna put it in time slots that people are actually watching. Again, it's really unfair. Nobody watches this. It's at 9 a.m. Who's gonna watch a game at 9 a.m? Nobody watches a game at 9 a.m.
Yeah, unless it's like World Cup and it's in Japón and you're watching.
But everything stops, and that's the reason why the World Cups are always in the summer.
Yeah,
everything that is done for that, and even that they don't put the game at 9 a.m. You just happen to catch it at 9 a.m. because in Japan, it's 10 o'clock at night.
Exactly.
So that's part of giving visibility and making it happen, and there's no excuses for those things, because what you're saying is like that. I think that's a great, like, nobody will say that that's actually bad for the game. Nobody will say like, oh, because they're undermining it. No, if you're giving it visibility, you're giving it visibility. But if you're not giving it the visibility and then say, well, they don't make income, is what I'm telling you.
Yeah,
that's having your cart parked in the middle of an alleyway and say, why am I not selling tacos? It's like, because nobody sees you. Yeah. Obviously you're not gonna sell anything.
My one take on this has been on, because I've seen the criticism of sort of like what's in Monterrey, they won and they gave them iPads and they felt that was just like beneath or that wasn't a good price, and there was someone complaining about how they would have to travel on bus, and so I mean we're seeing that it costs money, that they're losing money. And if you want to give even more accommodations, that means the teams would lose even more.
But
You know,
that
so
happens. That happens to you with the U15s, the U17s, and the U20s. A lot of these players, and that's somebody who actually decided to insult me after, and that's technically when I stopped having these arguments. Is that no, most of these kids don't make it. I was part of that
yeah,
pipeline. I know I'm not a professional soccer player, and I know Cruz Azul invested a lot of money in me to fly me in concentrations and send me in hotels for tournaments. And I'm not a professional soccer player, so that's why I know that a lot of U15s, U17s, U20s don't make it. From the time I was in Cruz Azul till the first player that I saw come out of their cantera, we were at least 10 or 20 generations of players. That's at least 500 players that didn't make it, and they still invested in them. So investing just on one more team, or like cutting corners and trying to strike a deal so the U20s and the women could get cheaper airfare, and the airfare helping out, is not that hard.
so
Because at the end,
okay, so yeah, you're saying the money is there, then they're just being a bit too
yes,
cheap.
because that's when you think about it. And again, you cut on things that you don't need. How many times
Yeah.
have we complained in the Liga MX that we get these big contracts of players that come from South America that don't make it? Why you have to pay so much money to that extra player from South America? Bring a kid from the U20, make it a project, see if that works out, one of your best ones. You don't have to pay him the same amount of money. And with that, you pay two of the women's players. You already have three players that have the potential to be better than making that sell from the player from South America. Because a lot of these investments sometimes don't work out. We're also on Mexican. I understand that the cut, because again, this is where the business gets dirty, but that's where it's like there's no excuse. If the business gets dirty and you're getting a cut from that player that you bring in, that's on you. But that's because you're getting the cut. But don't tell me that you can't do it, because there is ways to cut on things that are not necessary.
And I see the way you're putting it. I think to me that's the better way to go. To explain it, because kind of the way I've seen it just from other people, it almost seems like, it almost seems like they're complaining and they're already getting, it's like the team's already losing money, like Chiquis said, with the Santos with the light bill, and so I understand for some teams that they're gonna try to lose as less as they can. But if you're saying the money's there and then it's gonna take some maneuvering, I think seeing it from that point of view, it makes more sense than sort of like, oh, we just got iPads.
Because where Ronaldo was going is that when you see a second division, a third division, and the Liga the old Liga de Ascenso, and they were not profitable, and these guys were not getting paid, it's like, well, yes, they were not getting paid, but their salaries still allow them to live as long as that team functioned. So that's a different problem. That's a problem of how you manage it. But even then, and this is, again, I have friends, I'm gonna tell you their names, but that were playing Liga de Ascenso that were making more money that they would have made when they were playing for Pumas. So when you have a Liga de Ascenso team that for whatever reason the owner decides to bring these bills and pay that kind of money, and then he is not sustainable, which a lot of, we know that in Liga de Ascenso there was a lot of money that was, doubtful where it came from. Those are completely different problems, and I understand them. But you can't say that when you have the established teams on the bigger scale of the Liga MX, that there's way for them to manage around their finances, which they've done. That's why they've been able to exist for 70 years. There's a way to, again, I'm not saying go all in and make it luxury brands, but it's like you shouldn't have to travel on a bus. You should be able to stay overnight, so then you have a better product. Because if I have players that are tired, players that never recover, of course my product is not good. Can you imagine Manchester City having to play like that if they didn't have a cryogenic chamber and having to go on one of those altitude things to recover? Of course not. They can't function at that level. If Manchester City, of Manchester United, of any teams in the European on the Premier League were in the same place as Juarez, they wouldn't even exist. They will be in the 4th, 5th division. So that's why there's ways around it. There's ways to invest in it, make it sustainable, and just little by little make it grow. Again, if in 10, 15 years you did it and it doesn't work, then that's fine. The experiment was there. You did everything you were supposed to do, and then it didn't work out. But until you don't get to that point, you can't have that argument.
Yeah, I agree. There should be some increased investment in the women's game. I don't know like their whole numbers. If I was like a business owner and I had all that, I probably would, see a way to invest for future. The only issue I have with like the investment in like the men or the young men, like U16s or whatever, is that they have the potential of being of growing into stars and being sold for huge money. So it's like you're investing in something that is going to be big and that could be big in the future. Whereas on the women's side, there's not that evidence yet. There's not that end result that has been seen. Where in Europe they just barely started their club teams and stuff like that. If you could sell Liga MX woman to Europe and all of a sudden they're banking and the transfer fee and all that, then that'd be great. But I don't know if that really
just think about it. When you see talking about visibility, now social media is a big part of it. In the past 4 years, for instance, when it started, there's been a constant growth of like over 4.6 million followers for Liga MX. Now there's 33.5 million people who follow Liga MX Femenil. So to have 4 million, just think about how much, again, there's some numbers when you watch games, and I'm talking games in the Premier League, for example, because a lot of it's like, oh, we'll watch the best of the best. Yes. But when I invest as a company to put the Premier League, I have to put Bournemouth Norwich there. And some of these numbers of Bournemouth Norwich are not equivalent to even on Liga Femenil. Liga Femenil does better. So there is potential. There is visibility. There's the want for the product. And again, might be very niche and it's starting to be niche, but it's on you to make it the potential to make it bigger. And the same happens with the sponsors. A lot of the sponsors, and you saw it nationwide, just signed with the NWSL, and Budweiser signed with the NWSL. That happened here in the US. It's being a big fight, and Megan Rapinoe's stepping up and saying the things that they say for that to happen, which is why she says it.
You think she's exaggerating her, her statements just to get it out there?
Yes, because what happens is I actually got to sit down and talk to Megan for half an hour during the semifinal, after the semifinal of the Women's World Cup. I had a one-on-one interview with her.
Oh,
in general, the women's soccer players in the US are way more intelligent than your average athlete because a lot of them went to college. Some of them went to very good colleges. And they actually studied because they know at some point they might not be able to live out of this. So they actually invest in their own and understand things and understand how the world works. So what happens is she's raising her voice. She's telling this because it's a simplistic idea of how we see it, right? Why if in a year, it's a very specific example, but if in 2019, I was able to bring more money than the men's program. There you are.
Okay, sorry guys, technical difficulties. At what time? I said I got cut off. So where did I get cut off?
Wait, let's just let Eustis finish.
Let Carlos finish his thought.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We'll throw you back in after that.
So what happens is you have. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Made more money. They made more money.
It was a very specific example that after the U.S. men's national team does not qualify to the men's World Cup, that year the women's national team made more money than they did. It's a very specific example, but it happened.
Wow.
So then they're like, if we're selling more jerseys than they do, if they're not going to the World Cup and all their sponsors are not going to the World Cup and they lost those sponsors because of how they did it, wouldn't it make sense that we should get paid more? And that's the main hold of it. Then if you actually read their depositions, which I invite you to read them, there's a whole deposition. It's now they're public records, and you can actually look them up on the trial they had for equal pay. They actually had to fire the lawyers from the U.S. Soccer Federation, and Carlos Cordeiro lost his job because a lot of the comments they were saying is like, but isn't it true that you're less talented than a men's player? So that's what they were trying to get you, and that's why they got him. They made so many sexist comments that they're like, see how that's still there? This is not about the numbers. This is because they're saying those things. They changed the lawyer group completely. Somebody else comes in, and then obviously from their demands, the judge said, well, we can't pay you equally because if you would look at it on the big blah, 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 blah. But you're absolutely right. you're an elite team. You're the best team in the world, and you do not receive the same
compensation.
No, not the compensation. You don't have the same amount of doctors. You don't have the same travel. How is that? That should not be. That should not be. I am not going to tell you that you have to bring in the same money, because at the end of the day, the men's World Cup makes more money. And if the men's World Cup, if the men's team would have made it, they would have brought a lot more cash. But you should have the same conditions because you actually deliver. So I'm going to give you that. And that was the first step. And then what they're saying, they just keep pushing it, because now what they're doing is that Megan makes a lot of money because she's been able to secure deals with Nike and be sponsored for other things. And her wife just shot 3 CarMax commercials. They do the money, they make the money, but it's like, we have the star power, and I don't want the girls behind me, a girl that is 6-7 years old, that dreams to be a professional soccer player, to get to a point where she's not Megan Rapinoe, she's not Alex Morgan, she's just a soccer player, and she can't live of it. I want her to live of it, and that's what they're fighting for.
Yeah, and hopefully that young girl will, be a quality player and at least like a starter in a team to be able to earn that living. But yeah, definitely, like you see MLS players
live off of it. Sorry, Chiquis, live off of it from being in the national team, because they've had league, women's league, like this is maybe like the 3rd or 4th, and they folded, but they seem to have problems bringing in people, and so I think
this one, the NWSL has been working pretty well. That's why they keep spending. And it's also because as the world have changed, there's a lot more women and people of color and investors that are not your typical investors. And they're being able to sustain that, because now they don't see it as just a toy. It's like, I'm actually going to try and invest in this thing and make it a thing. And the ratings that the NWSL had with their Challenge Cup last year was the first step of showing, listen, when you put us and there's nothing around us, people consume it. So that means that we have visibility. People like it.
Yeah, it's like MLS.
But it's really too early to tell. It's really too early to tell about the new league, because I mean the one that folded recently was it folded in 2017, 2018, and then obviously women's soccer got a little bit more excitement, with the last World Cup. So I mean, but that's always been the problem with the World Cup, the women's soccer in the U.S., that they try to back off their success of their Olympics and their World Cups. And I mean, and part of people that attend those events, it's part sporting, but it's also part social. But really, what really determines the success of the league is not how many people will go pack in AT&T Stadium in a World Cup. It's really those mid-season games, on Thursdays, on Wednesdays. I mean, will people still go watch them play? And I'm still skeptical that can you guys still hear me?
I could hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right. So I mean I'm still skeptical. I hope they're able to make it, but like I said, I'm still skeptical about that. But sorry, my phone got cut off earlier. Where did I get cut off? What was the last thing?
You were talking about why. I mean, I kind of touched on the fact that you were saying that the second division, a third division, and didn't work, and I kind of in Mexico, and why those folded, and I kind of I mean, you weren't there, but I explained why yes, that did happen, but how there's a way around it, and why that specific case in Mexico happens.
Yeah, but but the thing is, there is really no way around it, because we've never had Mexico. The lower division has never had a fully autonomous where the 18 or 16 or 20 owners are not being subsidized by the first division. So where I had I guess my contention with Eugene and a couple other people was like, well, it's equal pay, demand equal pay. Well, equal pay, nobody has it, and nobody has ever gotten it in Mexico. So
that's what we've been saying. There's the term equal pay, and again, this is, people take it literal. What equal pay means, and again, it's like equal pay for equal work.
It's a structure. I get it. There's a structure.
Is that you can live of it. That's all it means. It shouldn't be, if you paint walls and I paint walls, you can actually live of it and I can't. That's what it means.
I get that, but that still doesn't even exist for the men. So you can't you can't say equality when even the men don't get it.
I've never seen a player on the Ascenso, because again, third division in Mexico is a stretch, but I've never seen a player in Ascenso that cannot live off it. Whether the structure in the club is really horrible and they have their issues and whatever, that's a different story. But the fact that their salaries don't allow them to live, that's not true. Every Ascenso player that I've known, and I know a lot of them, was able to live off it. Well, fine, without problems. He could focus on soccer. Whether the team folded and whatever because the guy took too much on him, that's a different story. But he offered them salaries that were well worth it. And I was just telling them that I have a lot of examples, which again, I can tell you the names, but there were some players that were playing in Mérida or that were playing Lobos Buap that were making triple or double what a Pumas player does.
I'm offended by that. To my dear Pumas, I think I'm gonna cry.
I grew up a Pumas fan, so I know the institution very well. That's why I use them as example.
I understand you may have anecdotal instances and stuff like that, but like just for example, or Gulet Peña last year. In fact, I'll provide the link. Last year, he said that he was making the equivalent of basically almost $100,000 per month, and what a Liga de Expansión team was offering him was the equivalent of about $1,200-$1,300. And
did he tell you how much he was making in Liga de Expansión when he was playing for Correcaminos?
No, he didn't. But what he said was $1,200. Now in Mexico, it's okay, but that's a Gulet Peña. That's a guy that had a World Cup under his belt. Now I've read plenty of articles where players, in the lower division, second division, when it was Primera A and stuff like that, where they had to have second jobs. And obviously, when you start getting to the third and fourth division, I mean, they're a lot younger and stuff like that. But it's a struggle, and I guess youth development and scouting in Mexico. And you said you were part of that pipeline. You should know this. 20 years ago, it was bad.
It's
it was not and for example, like Joel and I, we used to talk about how bad it was in Mexico, 20 years ago. And like you said, we'd always talk about, it's pretty pathetic that, Mexico doesn't have like the equivalent of the March Madness or the Little League World Cup for soccer to try to get more interest into the game. And, I remember back then when, Joel and I were talking about this, the FEMEX Food tried the Liga Universitaria. I don't know if you remember that, where they were trying to get the universities. That lasted, 4 years? I mean, and Liga, the FEMEX Food, I mean, they invested money into this. And, they tried to get, a this type of atmosphere, try to, grow the game grassroots. And even then it failed.
So then what you're saying is that you shouldn't invest in something that it's not going to grow, even though you've tried to do it for 20, 40 years and it's still.
So if you're doing it for 40 years and it's not working, I mean, the saying, if you keep doing it over and over and you keep getting the same result, is that insanity?
But then again, you're comparing pears to apples. Like this, it has nothing to do with it. And the same. Second division, third division. I play second, third division, and again, I'm sorry, it might be anecdotal, but those are the guys who live of it. Like you can read all the articles you want, but if you don't palpable, like if it's not palpable, it's a story. I can bring a story. It's an example, and you can read those. But when you're involved in that world, and you know where you know exactly how the pipeline works, and obviously what you said, okay, it's improved. At the end of the day, it's still the investment you still do on these youth players. One player might work out, and that it's kind of the same thing that Adidas does with the national team. Adidas, when they grab the national team, they're like, this team is the only team in the world that we're going to put on our top priority because it's the only team in the world that sells jerseys in 2 different countries. So what happens is that in the 3 years that there's no World Cup, sometimes they're in the red numbers, but they don't care because they know if Mexico makes it to the World Cup, I'm making that money back. So here's the same thing. You don't know, and you can't use those examples of, oh well, but it wasn't equal for Ascenso. It's like, no, but these guys never, like, you might have those 2-3 examples, and again, I can guarantee you that in the Ascenso time, that was like a little bigger, that when he was not subsidized, when he was in the Pumas Morelos, when he was in the Cruz Azul Hidalgo, when he was, again, your Alebrijes, when he was your Dorados, those teams, the players live.
Saltillo, your Zacatepec, when it was with America and stuff like that. So I mean,
the players live. They live.
It's because it's
fancy.
Because but it's subsidized.
But then again, they are able to live. That's all the women are asking. Make sure that I can stay a soccer player. That's it.
So basically, the teams, the men's or the clubs, say for example in Mexico, they need to cut out a little bigger pie of their income to give out to the feminine sides.
But it's not it's not of the income, because that's the other thing. It's not your income. There's a difference between the cash flow and the income. So they can just grab from their cash flow that they have from buying this marañao and use it to invest in something else.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think some improvements can be made. Definitely, I'm seeing your point on accommodations for flights and things like that. Salary, like you said, equal pay does not equal pay, and I didn't really. You're sort of enlightening me on that. I took that sort of literally. I didn't really think too much about it.
I didn't take it literally. I mean, I didn't take it literally, but I was thinking more along the lines of base structure and kind of like similar what MLS has, where what the guy, the novice coming in is going to make, and that there's going to be a couple. I mean, that's kind of like what I got, like But my contention with this is still that the men don't even get that. They don't have it. I mean,
but they live of it. Again, why they live of being soccer players.
But I mean, if they're living off, soccer players, and I get that. I know that they make good salaries. Not everybody's making Guiñac money, and I get that. Not everybody was making Cardoso money, and I get that. But even the guys, from Colibris and stuff like that, and the guys from, Veracruz and stuff like that, granted, they're making good money. Maybe they weren't getting paid all on, on the 15th or the 30th or whatever, or the 1st. But when you're, I just think I think it's just a hard sell to the public. It really is, because it's something that nobody has ever had in Mexican football.
It's mental gymnastics. There's the teams, they have cash flow, and the players can live off it. Again, the examples you're giving me are not players. Alison Gonzalez is an asset. He's being watched by people overseas. This is not the guy from Colibris that nobody remembers what his name is, and he wore number 43.
Wasn't Claudinho, was it? Or Grana, Mario Grana?
Exactly. Like, you remember Claudinho?
I remember.
And probably Claudinho was taking all the money from everybody else.
I remember the house he had, though. Jesus.
And that's what I'm saying. That's the corners you can cut. You can make not those salaries, but when you bring a player from outside, you don't have to make that deal. Make something you can with scouting the way it is right now. You can find something better, smaller, and then you can use that to fund everything else.
So, yeah, the problem is everything's so short term. We talk about the short torneos. It's all about instant results, and I feel like that's the problem. Again,
yeah, all those are problems, and they don't have easy solutions. And again, like I'm not if I really had the magic wand and I could fix it, trust me, I would just go kick Mikel Arriola and be like, bro, give me this.
No,
I can't.
Yeah.
Again, I was cut off, so I didn't know if you guys heard this, but you did hear the disclaimer, but that I, a business owner, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you need an exit strategy if you know that it's not going to work. So hypothetically, how much do you give? How long do you give it?
Depends on what your cash flow is and how you have to have a plan. But if they don't have a plan and they're just taking it day by day, then how do you do it? But for that, in order for us to actually discuss this and make an actual rational decision, you and I will actually have to see the numbers and their plan.
And we'll never see those numbers.
I understand, but then
because we've never even seen them for the men, you know.
But that's the whole point. We can't come and assure something if we don't know.
True, but you can deduce something, and
No.
you can, because if over 200 clubs had folded or failed, was it profitable?
But
No.
again, that's why
that is a hard to know.
But the teams that have the team, this is the same team. This is not an independent. We're not talking about the NWSL, like Olympic Reign or Real Monarchs. You're talking about America. You're talking about Chivas. You're talking about Tigres. And the amount of money that comes from the companies are behind Tigres and that they're behind these teams, they're able to make it. So you might say like what I said. You might say, well, listen, Juarez can sustain it. Let's not have Juarez have that, and let's reduce the amount of teams in the league. But the teams that have it and that are able to do it, that they actually have cash flow and they are able to maintain it, should be able to pay them.
It's actually another problem that I have, an issue that I have that, and this is just a matter of opinion, but I don't see the point of trying to establish a league off the success or off the history of another team, be it male or female. You understand what I'm saying? I get, you know, it's like,
again, I think because of how our society works, it was easier to do that, because if you went full in and try to do what they did with the leagues that they done with basketball or football, then you're doomed.
Yeah, I understand that was very common back, you know, in the days of our grandfathers and great grandfathers, where you actually had clubs, you know, Atlético Club Social and stuff like that, where, you know, I think Atlas was the last one to do it, you know, where you had, you know, volleyball and you know, tennis and this and that and the other, you know. But I think, and I think Beto touched on this earlier about the NW, you know, what was it, the women's NBA and stuff like that. I just think that in the short term, I understand why people do it, but you know, why they do it. But I think in the long term, I don't think it's smart to try to build a fan base off an existing fan base.
I don't know.
You know, because for me,
that final between Tigres and Monterrey with 60,000 people in the stadium, I think otherwise.
But that.
We lost you there, Ron.
He lost again. I think Eustis, I was gonna say something, but you pretty much answered it for me. That was about just having less teams, female teams with, you know, with the clubs that can't afford it, and then you could eventually, once it becomes profitable or it's a better sale, bring in more clubs that can, you know, sustain teams. So I do, and I am, and I don't agree with Ron about teams, because it could become a family thing, you know, like the whole family. A lot of times they're all fans of the same club, so it makes sense to me if there's the female version of it.
And again, if there was no sustained growth, if you didn't have those 4 million, 33 million people following the league, there's a case for it. But when you see that there's some demand, again, like it's hard for me, because it depends on the kind of the business that you have. But for example, in my case, I work for something that provides a service, because at the end of the day, whether I do news or I do the cheapest games in English, I am providing entertainment for you guys. And when we offer that, right, even if it's you guys calling me to do this, or the 20, 30 people that watch it, for something that is not advertised, because we haven't been like shutting out to the wind, there is some interest. And unless, you know, you plan it for a certain, what he said, you have a plan. But that's what I'm saying. If you're not the owner, and then in this case, it's like you can't bring the league down because you don't know. You don't have the numbers, so you can't say, oh, but I know. It's like, no, you don't. Because soccer and the whatever businesses with my own don't function the same way.
I think I'm, from my perspective, I'm making a sort of an educated guess. Is, you know, and I'm not a business owner, you know, but I think I have a good understanding around a lot of the stuff. I think that there could be investments, like you're saying. You sort of open my eyes a little bit to a lot of this stuff. I think I agree.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Ron
I
always
agree that the clubs.
Ron always coming in to interrupt.
I agree. I agree that the
Men's
clubs.
PCS.
I actually do
Pay your
agree that
bill, man.
the women's clubs could, latch on to the men's team because that's the only way that they're going to make it survive. But I just, as a business person, I think it's sort of like a risky investment because you have the history of the failures of the women's leagues in the U.S. Even the WNBA, it's been around for a while, and they're just sort of like obscure.
But we're also not we're not the same society that we were 30 years ago.
That's true.
Oh,
women in the workplace don't work the exact same way. In Mexico, we might think the same way, but one of the reasons why the WNBA and things are seeing a little growth here is because things are changing, and you got to change with it.
Well, it's not women in the workplace though. See, I'm going back to what do you want to watch? Like, do you want to watch sports at the highest level? And in that case, it's not.
But
women
again,
women in the workplace applies to.
But my point is my point is there's a 15-year-old that wants to be a soccer player, and she sees that girl that is playing for America or that's playing for Chivas.
Yeah,
might not resonate with you, but resonates with her.
Yeah, that's going to help. But that's the reason why. Well, hold on, one point. That's the reason why the U.S. the U.S. women's national team is so successful, because of women in the workplace and the history of the U.S. having so much. I guess feminism and freedoms for women, and in other countries, you even mentioned in Europe where it was against the law. I think you said that's why the U.S. women dominates, and they've won all those World Cup titles. But I think as far as viewing, you still want to watch at the highest level. If I was to watch the World Cup final or the U17 World Cup final, which one would I choose? And that's sort of the same thing. In sports. Now, if I, have some interest and, I like the U17s or whatever, and I want to watch that World Cup, then sure. Or if I want to watch the women's.
But then again, that's not personal preference. That's where it's like.
I know, and I think it's a personal preference among the masses. Everyone wants to watch the greatest play. Like if you're basketball's sort of different, but like if you want to watch basketball, what's the main attraction in basketball? Dunking. Just seeing the pure physical talent that happens. I mean, maybe in the WNBA again, you don't see that.
But you have. But sorry to interrupt, Carlos. But Beto, your I guess your perspective or your view of it is why Mexico doesn't have a functioning second division, because and this used to piss me off. But watching announcers in Mexico refer to the second division as Liga de las Desgracias or Liga del Calvario or stuff like that. Minimizing the league as lesser. As the media, they don't have to be cheerleaders, but they can promote the game. And it serves their interest as well.
You're gonna start promoting MLS.
No. I'm not a cheerleader. But the U.S. has done. They've been able to market. Amateur competition like March Madness and the football in the bowl, games and little leagues and stuff like that. Mexico hasn't really been able to do that. And why? Because a lot of it, stems from your mentality. And I'm not saying that it's, that it's bad and evil and stuff like that. But, you can enjoy something knowing that it's not the best, but it can bring other entertainment value.
That's why we watch Mexican League.
What's that?
Exactly. That's why
it is, and I understand why people like, and that same argument can also, can be applied to Liga Femenil and stuff like that. Now, granted, it's not everybody's cup of tea, but not every league is. But part of that's why I've always said, and I've always been, I've come to terms that Liga Mexican soccer should just adopt the American model, forget promotion relegation because we're never going to have a good one. And just start building up franchises and stuff, like kind of like what the NFL does, where once a city is ready to have a first or a team, go for it, because there's a lot of an owner, an investor, they're going to want they're going to want some assurances, kind of like like the league, the NFL owners and MLB owners and stuff like that. They're going to want assurances from the city that they're in. there's no assurances for a second division, investor or second division, owner, with promotion and relegation. Just imagine, look at all the the clubs and the owners and the presidents that from one day to another, boom, guess what? There's no promotion, there's no relegation.
That's exactly why they did it. I mean, they are trying to tackle that model, and also it's because it's hard in terms of richness. Mexico, even though it's a rich country, there's not a lot of investors. Here in the US, the NWSL, the WNBA have been able to do that because there's a lot of smaller investors that can turn into big owners of a team, and they partner together. We don't have that.
And it's something that and some the guys will attest to this, and it's something that I've been against for 30 years, but now I'm starting to kind of like maybe turn the page, and maybe the way to go is to one of the things that I do not like, or what has happened to Europe, is how you've gone foreign investors, and in a way it's kind of killed the identity of the clubs. But I said, well, if it's happening everywhere, might as well adapt. And if it means getting new, like imagine Cruz Azul being owned by Quikrete, or bringing new owners or something like that, from abroad, because at the rate we're going 70 years, we can't get a fully autonomous first division and a fully autonomous second division. Maybe we're going about it the wrong way. Maybe we need maybe, like I said, maybe we do need to adopt the NFL model, the NBA model of franchises, and attract investors and assure and give them some assurances of their returns.
At least that you come out even, because that's what happens with the big clubs in Europe. What I was saying is, like, a lot of them lose money, but it's disposable income that these mega rich people have. So it's kind of like PSG, Manchester City. It's a toy. It's a toy that I'm like making awesome.
That's a pretty good toy.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's an expensive hobby.
That's a good discussion. I think it sort of also relates, and we talked about this a long time ago before, which I sort of see it similar to being in comparison to like the English language coverage of Liga MX and Mexican soccer. It's a cool thing to do. It's cool to see, but the landscape of Mexican Americans as they grow and forget Spanish or don't even learn Spanish, at the same time they don't watch soccer. They leave soccer to their parents. They watch NBA, they watch other stuff, and so Mexican league coverage, and that's a quick perspective on that, but that's another topic we don't have to get into today.
No, and yes, that's part of it. But that's part of being assimilated, right? Because the reason why you do is because you feel American.
Or just what's around you. I mean, not necessarily feel American, but it's just what's around you. It's what everyone is doing. Now,
but I'm saying the people who hold on to it is because of nostalgia, right? It's like it's what sticks you to your roots. Now that now that teams exist in play, the MLS has now more teams, right? Because before it was very specific cities. Now Austin has its own team. So if you grow up watching Austin, then you might be an Austin fan, and you don't assimilate with Mexican soccer. All those things are true. All those things are things that eventually are moving in that direction.
Yeah, and I will say, like, my final thought on this would be, you mentioned about the lawyers. That's sort of messed up. I see not equal, but sort of not real good as well, the way Rapinoe sort of stuck it to the men with her 4 titles statement.
But that's why she does it. And again, I one thing that I've noticed, and obviously this comes from a male voice, is that and that's a tactic that you notice when somebody has an uneducated opinion, or they're just repeating what they hear, and they will tell you what the lawyer tell you. If you poke around enough, somebody will come out with that.
Yeah.
If you start poking around enough, at some point he's gonna blow up and tell you that, or offend you, and that's when it's like, so really, is it not something like that? No. I'm obviously saying it purely on no, you're not. that's still there. And if we don't acknowledge it and we don't try to fight against it, and specifically us as like what this whole conversation is like, specifically us as men, we're the problem. It's not Megan Rapinoe saying stick it to the men. The problem is that we've made that statement comes because we're the ones who did it. If we don't take an acknowledgement that those things exist and start calling them out, when you hear your friend say something about a girl, when he refers to her in a derogatory way, we're perpetuating that, and we're the responsible ones, because you're not going to say that in front of her because you don't have the guts to do it. A lot of people don't. But when you're on your WhatsApp groups, on your Discord groups, you're going to say it. And if you don't call out your friends and you start getting rid of that, then that's when you're going to start seeing that heal. Otherwise, it becomes a me against them, because she gets those things all the time, all day.
Yeah, it's letting your feelings get into it, really. Like when you let your feelings get into it, you want to stick it to somebody and you don't think with logic. Because and hopefully you don't get this impression, and maybe the people who listen, I know some other people probably don't agree or will get the wrong impression. Everything that I'm saying and I come from is with zero intention of being sexist or misogynistic or anything like that. I'm just looking at the stats and the facts of a business and how you would run a business to be successful.
But then again, I think that one thing that you did right is that instead of going at me and you ask the question, you're like, I want to hear what you have to say. That's what they don't do. Because at the end of the day, you don't have to agree with me, but now you know something that you didn't know, but now you know it because you wanted to hear it. The first part was hearing it. If you were not willing to hear, then you're doing the wrong thing. Your attempt of like, I want to hear what you have to say is exactly where we're supposed to be going.
Yeah, we need to have these discussions, and we need to start bringing a little bit more awareness. And I mean, you've definitely I learned a lot tonight, Carlos. Thank you for joining us. We're at the hour mark. I'm not sure how you feel about the.
Well, wait, my final take, and
yes.
then back to you, Eustis and Ron Chan. I was just saying the comment Eustis said about how it would resonate to the 15-year-old watching Chivas America Femenil, and I think that ultimately for the female sport to be more successful, that's the group that needs to embrace it. Because I do see a lot of like trying to win over the men, but I think that to me it's like wasting your time trying to expect to get fans. It's almost like trying to win over fans from other sports. So I think you go with those younger people that are gonna grow up watching that, and they're more likely to watch that league. I grew up watching Mexican League, and I watch Mexican League over even Champions League because that's what I like. That's what I grew up. I'll still watch some of those games, but Liga MX still gonna get me more excited, and that comes from growing up with that. So I feel it's the same. If with a lot of the youth, if they grow up watching the Liga Femenil and that's the group that embraces it, I think that will be enough to make it successful.
And there'll be enough people who cross over. I mean, I love women's. I just love soccer, which is one of the things that what you were saying. Like you like to watch things at its highest form, which is fine. That's your take. That's what you like. That's great. I love the sport. I could watch an 8-year-old play soccer, and it makes me happy. Again, that's how I see it. And I know there's a lot of people who are like me. That's why we work in these things. That's why we work in soccer. That's why there's coaches. We watch a lot of soccer. And a lot of us do that crossover. But the way I think about it, it's that I don't know how old are you guys? But when you grow older and then I think about it, I'm like, at some point, I'm going to be a dad. And I don't want my daughter to have to live with those things. I want my daughter to be able to say, hey, listen, I want to be a soccer player. And me be like, I'm going to support you. And if I don't make that planet for her, then I'm failing as a parent.
Yeah, I'm 45. I have 4 daughters. I agree with that.
You don't want them to be soccer players.
But I'm also practical though. I'm also practical. I don't set barriers. I expect them to knock down barriers, but I'm also practical. Like I think there's a Liga MX feminine soccer player who quit, I think, because it just wasn't enough money and didn't want to spend time away from her husband or partner or something like that.
Mhm.
And that's just a situation. It's like if you're going to, you're getting a degree in something that's not going to make a lot of money, and you want to have a family and you want to have all these things. Well, you either got to pick a different degree or pick a different career, because that's not going to work out. You have to be practical in types of things if you want certain things. Like if you're single though, and you're free to do whatever you want, then yeah, go for it.
Well, I picked a career that technically a lot of people don't make it, but here I am. So
Yeah.
again, to me, that's where it would be easier for me to study something else. I mean, again, you see, I have a pretty cool grasp of economics. I might be making a lot more money doing that, but that's not what I like.
It's funner. Yeah, it's funner. If you want to do something that makes you happy, then you do it. You don't pick like if you pick a job that's paying you $100,000 and you're happy, and you pass up a job that pays $300,000 that's it's boring and stuff, then go for it. Go for the $100,000 job. Totally makes sense. Yeah, well, thanks for all your stuff. I'll pass it to you, Jaime. You wanna?
Well, yeah. Obviously, I still burning topics that I wanted to discuss. I'm not sure if Carlos has time, but we do appreciate you joining us and really just teaching us about all this side of the business I was not familiar with.
Yeah, that's great stuff.
We had some interesting results in terms of Mexico Preolímpico. They were able to successfully qualify to Japón, Tokyo, by beating Honduras 2-1 in the Preolímpico. And on the other side was the United States, who actually lost. And we'll actually be playing Honduras in the final. There was also a friendly from the senior side, lost to Wales 1-0. A very frustrating match, fellas. I don't know if you guys were able to catch that. But what are your guys' thoughts on the Wales friendly?
Hey, Jaime?
Yes.
Well, I'll get to Wales in a sec, but regarding the Preolímpico, it's I'm surprised that the U.S. has not taken the Olympic a lot more serious, because if you guys should remember this, at least Mexican fans should remember this, but part of the reason Mexico started to take their youth a little serious was when Mexico failed to qualify for the 17, the 20, and the Olympics back in the early 2000s. And that was a gut punch. And then to top it off, losing to the U.S. in the World Cup, all within a year, 2 years of each other. That the silver lining to that down, to that, pardon the expression, shit show,
rock bottom,
was that what's that? Yeah, part of the silver lining to that was Mexico. Most of the teams started to really set forth and put in the youth teams, because prior to that, some of the teams, not all of them, some of the teams did not have really canteras, so to say. Not all of the first division teams had them, and because of those failures, when they started to actually put a little bit more money and a little bit more time, they started to see the results right away with the the under 17 World Cup titles, and I'm just surprised that the U.S. is still. I mean, that's three Olympics. It's unacceptable.
This is the reason, though, man. When Mexico this is the reason, though. When Mexico fails to make the Olympics or a World Cup or whatever, when they fail, it's like nearly a whole country who's hitting rock bottom. When the U.S. fails to make the World Cup, I said nearly. There's a lot of Mexican pride in the national team, the soccer team. When the U.S. fails,
and it's two countries.
There's like two or three people that hit rock bottom. No one cares, man.
I thought you were going to say that televisoras lose money.
But
it's the U.S.
They should care, because
if the dream team fails to win the in the Olympics, then people blow up or something, man. That's like, and you watch when Hugo Sanchez failed Who are they playing, man? How many shots on goals did they have? How many crossbars,
You mean
posts
in
did they hit?
Carson, the
Hey,
Olympic
you-
qualifiers in Carson?
Hey,
Yeah,
Cheekies, which country paid the most money for World Cup rights?
the U.S. What, you're gonna say the U.S.?
Yeah, because the Spanish, the Spanish,
Oh,
the
Spanish
the U.S.
language.
Spanish,
Spanish language.
it's got two pretty huge markets in Carlos, you know.
Yeah,
You know, he's
Spanish
part of that,
language.
Yep.
you know. So you know, I'm just surprised because you know the Telemundo and those guys, they want Mexico. You know, they want Mexico and they want U.S. in those tournaments because it's more money for these guys.
Well,
You know.
wait, I mean, Mexico, yes, for sure. At least when you're broadcasting in Spanish. The last World Cup we didn't have the US.
Yeah,
Like,
we didn't.
it didn't seem like it hurt the ratings too much.
Well, I mean, not
Yeah,
the Spanish one, but the U.S.
Oh,
I mean,
definitely.
the English, of course.
I
So I
think,
mean,
and if you really think about it, I don't know if you remember the campaign all of a sudden shifted all towards Mexico
Yeah,
in English.
I remember that.
that truly became el equipo de todos. You know.
Yeah.
In the Cape-
But yeah, I mean, I just think because I remember, you know, when Mexico failed in those three tournaments, you know, the 17, the 20, and failed to qualify. I mean, heads rolled in Mexico in Femex Food.
It's
I
like
mean,
it's like when you say, like, do you have high expectations for America? And if things don't go, if America doesn't make to the Liguilla, or if America doesn't get to the final, then, you know, things are, you know, they have expectations. But I won't say Chivas, but let's say like another team. You know, it's okay if they don't make it to Liguilla. It's, you know, it's expected. Not with
Like
America.
like Pumas.
Oh man, you're hurting me. At least you're not saying Pumas is the Dollar General of Liga MX.
Oh,
That's what they said.
I'm telling you, I grew up a Pumas fan, so I could never.
Yeah.
so Carlos, you're a Pumas fan?
Again, it's really pretentious. I always say it, but at this point, I don't have a team because
okay.
I obviously during my childhood years and in my early teens, I was a Pumas fan. But then I played for Cruz Azul, and I mean, to me, there was some pride in having to play for a third division and going international tournaments and wearing the shirt. So you start liking the team. Like, there was no reason for me not to like the place that was turning me into a soccer player. Then obviously now I call Chivas, and most of my family is from Guadalajara, and I have some friends in America, and my dad worked in Televisa for many years. So, and you start meeting people within the industry. Like, I have a good relationship with a lot of people in Pachuca. Nacho Ambriz was my coach for a couple of months. Chucho Ramirez coached me also. Like, it's hard for you not to root for them wherever they are.
Too bad that Juan isn't here. He's a profe. He's a youth coach in California, but he has, you know, he sent a couple players. Some of his players have been scouted by, what was it, Pachuca
Yes.
guys?
yeah.
Some of his players. That's pretty cool. How long were you in the Cruz Azul organization?
I was 2 years in the development stages when you're a kid on the school in la escuelita.
Okay.
Then there was
Like the Pumita school, right?
yeah,
Like
so,
okay.
but the Cruz Azul version of it. I was 2 years there. Then I was 1 year in la selección, en el selectivo, and then I played 2 years third division. But mind you, I was playing third division when I was 14 years old.
Right.
Then my dad decided that there was too many politics, and he took me out because it was back then where there was no way for you to become a soccer player when you came from the under divisions. And I left. Then I went to play with Sage. So I was in Sage's academy for a couple of months. Then Chucho Ramirez took me to practice with the U15 national team. I was 2 or 3 months with the national team. Then went back to playing in school with El Tec de Monterrey. And then they took me to play in that third division where Nacho Ambriz was the coach.
Impresionante.
Then I moved to the US and I played high school. That was it.
Oh, you play high school in the US?
Well, yeah, I came to the US. I played high school. because I was learning English in Mexico, I was a year older than most people. So by my senior year, when you have your big showcases to make it to college, because I was only in high school for junior and senior year. So the first year was kind of like adapting to Miami, which is where we moved. And then the second year was like, well, now I'm putting in everything into being college. And then because I was born in '86 and everybody was '87, I was not available for any showcases. So I had to convince the college coaches to come watch me in the high school, and it was really tough. I ended up getting a full ride scholarship for grades, so I didn't have to play soccer, and I became a soccer coach in my high school, and I ended up coaching soccer in high school for 12 years.
Oh, cool. Were you dominating pretty much in high school as a player?
No, well, my school was very good.
Really? Okay.
We had 7 state championships. So in general, my school was pretty good, but I happened to land in between generations. Like there was one generation that was very good that was leaving. So my senior year, I was in a gap, and that sucked.
Yeah.
And then the freshmen that came in, I coached them, and we won states.
Oh, nice.
Cool. Miami, then, eh? Yeah, I grew up in northern Florida. I call it Southern Alabama.
Yeah.
So it's all football. Soccer is like really not even cared about. And we had like a German exchange student, a Spanish exchange student, and they were like head and shoulders better than any one of us. So it was pretty crazy.
I was just very tactically sound. I'm not fantastic technically, but again, playing at that level, and all of a sudden, like, stop playing it. You get to high school, and it's like, why are you stepping there? Come back. and that's why they recruited me as a coach. It was like, you have coach material.
Cool.
Yeah, what's interesting, kind of bringing it back is, the Americans are kind of. No, it's fine. No, I appreciate the banter. I feel like the excuses are there. Oh, we took our D team, or B, so whatever. These aren't the best under 23 players that we took to this tournament. It's not a big deal to miss out on another Olympic. But it just feels like, wow, another failure for the United States, and I just can't wait for.
I don't think they see it as not a big deal. I think they see it as a really big deal, especially when they're going to host the World Cup. And a lot of times that's where you want to showcase a lot of your talent, or take a lot of your talent, through an Olympics. It's like part of their proceso, and it's like you take a group and then you have them play in the Olympics. And then a lot of times, a lot of those players would end up being, a part of the first of the senior team.
Yeah, but
sorry.
Go ahead.
I want to give you my take on that, and I actually need to leave because I need to get ready for my newscast. I think that what happened with the Olympics, I think it shows you, one, where the MLS is, and second, where the grassroots soccer of the US is. And I say that because, one, technically, with the amount of money and resources the US has, even an MLS team should be better than the Central American teams, especially at that level. And especially when these players some of them were not constant starters, but a lot of them were starters on MLS teams. So that's your first division. So you as a league, that shows where your level is. And that's the first thing that is unacceptable. And the second is that a lot of people were using the excuses like, oh, but our U23 level our U23 team is the one playing in Northern Ireland. And I'm like, no, that's your senior team. They happen to be 20 or 21 because you roll into these like awesome space of players that happen to be that age, but that's not your U23 team. That's your senior team. So that shows you that there's a big gap between the two. And that means that you're not doing things steadily growing as a league and as a federation. And I think, and I mean, you coach here in California, and you see that I think the MLS next, making it basically a professional path, is going to solve sort of those things if they handle it correctly. Because the pay to play was just making these things. There's these gaps. And just lately, because there's these 3 huge agencies in Europe that were bought by American companies, and now they've been able to export players, and that's helping out a little bit. But on the local level, it's just leaving you with a gap. Right. So it's been a pleasure. Thank you guys for reaching out. Thank you guys for listening.
Yeah, thanks.
I think it's very enriching for everybody.
And before you go, Carlos, where can everybody stalk you for our listeners?
They can find me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, on TikTok, Carlos Eustis. That's Eustis TV. I am that guy with the TikTok of the Rosa Mexicano. I'm the guy who did that.
That video did really well, didn't it?
It blew up all of a sudden. It was insane. Funny enough, I started my career technically doing that. Some people were like, "Hey, isn't this the guy that do the Lunes de Logos?" Which ages ago in Facebook, I would do these stories about the shields of Mexico, the crest, how it came to be. You can still find them, still there. And it was kind of going back to those roots, and it worked really well. And I was really, really surprised. So yeah, that's where everybody can find me.
Awesome, man.
Good stuff, man. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for hopping on, Carlos.
TikTok.
Absolutely. Take care, guys.
It's Carlos Eustis. It's funny because that TikTok video he did about the Rosa, that the controversial jersey for the national team, how it's pink. There's somebody in the comments like, "Hey, why is it pink?" And then I actually used his video to respond, and then that video got I think 200 likes, man. I was like, "Damn, this video is informative." It blew up out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's good to have informative TikToks instead of cringe TikToks.
Oh yes,
so it's refreshing.
Yeah. As far as the Wales match, very frustrating, and some of the issues that Mexico just have never ever been able to address or fix is teams that play defensively and bunker. They get an unfortunate goal that they concede. It could have been offsides, whatever. But that happened very early in the match. And then from that point on, Wales just parked the bus, played very, very defensively, very aggressively with the press. And, Tata Martino had no answer, no response to that. He also made some questionable calls as far as the subs. And as far as taking players, he took 4 goalkeepers, and he took Henry Martin and Alan Pulido, but they were injured, so they weren't available. So they had to use Chucky Lozano as a false striker, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah, I'm not surprised to see defensive teams do well. That's something I don't know, because Mexico's had plenty of coaches. I don't know that any coach has been able to or will be able to solve that. It's got to be up to the players. And people should know.
It wasn't a bunker, though.
It wasn't?
Yeah.
They didn't park the bus. They were pressing. So I mean, it was a hybrid of basically being compact and pressing in intervals, which can have the effect of bunkering. I think I made this private. I think the La Puentista in me, would, I think, you're not going to tiki-taka your way out of that every time.
Yeah.
When I said the La Puentista in me, is that, one of the things that I always admired, La Puente coach, people would always say that he was ultra defensive. He was just his philosophy was being balanced.
Ron, you cut off there.
Yeah, I understand his point. It's
right, back on. Sorry about that, guys.
Yeah,
there you are.
Just technical difficulty today. Anyhow, so one of the things that La Puente used to do with those type of teams when they would quote unquote park the bus was give them the ball, let them come out of their shell. I don't know. I just think that Mexico was not disciplined enough and not patient.
Yeah.
To basically break down Welsh defense. And I think they got flustered. I mean, it's good. It's I hope they can learn from it. But I just think that passing back and taking it from one wing to the other wing, that's not always gonna. That's not gonna do it.
I agree. For a second, I had to check my prescription and make sure I wasn't watching a Chivas match because it just felt like another Chivas match. Because it's exactly the kind of football that they've been playing lately. Is just chasing their own tail, trying to figure out how to break the bunker, break defensive teams, and they just had no answer. And I think when we were talking about this on the Cantina Twitter, and Juan said that, well, we just don't have those kind of players that can dribble past 3, 4, 5 defenders and open up space. We don't have. Pizarro hasn't, unfortunately. He's just not in form. He should not be anywhere near the national team at this point. Same with Pulido and Jonathan Dos Santos. I mean, why is Tata calling up players from the MLS that have been inactive for almost 6 months now? It's just unacceptable, I think.
I guess more so to see them during camp, to see. I guess that's where it's not just the match, but also like the coach is only gonna get so much time with the national team, so they'll work with a group of players, and then he spends more time with them, in training camp than at the actual match, which is just with 90 minutes, and less than that for many other players. I guess when he's seeing if who's understanding, I guess his tactical ideas, and I think that's during the camp, the interescuadras and whatnot.
Yeah, and I think we just really missed a striker in that match. And I'll be honest, man, the landscape doesn't look very promising. I'm not sure what the time frame will be if we'll get Raul in time for the Gold Cup. So we're gonna have to start looking at alternate choices. Macias will probably not be available because he'll probably be going to Tokyo for the Olympics, which leaves us with Henry Martin, Alan Pulido, and I don't know, Angel Sepulveda. I don't know who's left in Mexico as a striker. It's time.
He might have to take it back when he said Normeño. He might have to say you might be one-dimensional, but it's all we have. You are one-dimensional.
He's gonna have to beg. He's gonna have to say sorry to Carlos Vela and beg him.
He
or
is.
something.
No,
But he
don't
don't.
going the Vela route.
He ruined that though. He came out on the press conference and pretty much said, "Burn that one down."
Yeah, Carlos Vela has showed interest. He's about going to the Olympics and helping Mexico out. However, Tata Martino said, absolutely not. You got to go all in. You can't just pick and choose, who you want to play with or whatever. So I really think...
Yeah, which I agree. I agree with that, Jaime. I agree with Tata's take.
Do you, though? I mean, they are two separate things, though.
Yeah.
I feel it's disrespectful for the rest of the people that are fighting for a place with the selección, and sort of you have this privilege of
But that's the whole point. He's not going to be taking up a space. He's going to be playing for the Olympic team. He's not taking up somebody's potential spot on the national team that's going to be playing in Copa Oro this summer. He wants to go.
Yeah, but
and
I know, but as the coach, he's probably questioning his commitment. If it's like, I'll play this or I'll play that.
Yeah.
And dude's Argentine, man. They're at another level of passion, dude. And it's like, you gotta not just sweat the jersey, but bleed it, man. And if you're over there, like, I'll let you know when I'm ready. That to them is like, it's unacceptable, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's diva-like.
Those guys will go with a broken leg if they get called up, just because they all want to wear the jersey, and I like that mentality, and it sucks not to count on him, just because he's very talented. But
do you want to win a gold medal, or do you want to be right? That's my question. Is I want to win a gold medal at all costs, and if that requires us letting Vela have his way, so be it. I'd rather him be there
Mex has
than
a gold medal, and they won it without him.
Yeah,
and
but
he was playing. He was in Arsenal at the time. But I want the mentality to be that. So I would prioritize that, to have that type of mentality of having that passion for the national team.
Because
Where the
here's the reality. We're probably going to take like Chicharito, and come on, man. It's just a wasted
that's a
space.
possibility, because we've seen it in the past where it's like
They took Oribe
the
twice.
the sponsors will push for certain players because they need to sell product and you're the face. They might have been marketing you, and they already have all these ads with Oribe holding a Fanta or whatever, and it's like the Olympics, and you're not going to leave him out. We already spent all this money. The commercial's there, man. We need this dude. We need this dude. So that's the business aspect of it. So that's why it happens sometimes. But I do feel, to an extent, with the selección, where there's this like kind of party mentality, and we talked about it the last pod, how a bunch of these dudes got partying with hookers. What was it, like at a Copa America? And so that's been a thing, that not just at pretty much at any level of tournament, they're like partying some way or another. And I know I've heard it like, well, these other teams do it too. Yeah, but those teams are successful. You could say they earned that right. This team hasn't been successful, at least not at the elite level, to be, you haven't earned that yet. So I do think that mentality needs to change if they want to do quinto partido and beyond. You need that mentality of being more.
You need the all-in dedication. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, man, that is part of that passion, and and I think what's lacking is lack of competition within the selección, because in a 4-year cycle, you'll see up to 80 players getting called. And but even though they get called, it's the same group that will at least be around, and very few are gonna be there to knock them out or to challenge them for that position.
It's actually a really good point you bring up. Is at this point, the players that we're calling up to the selección and to defend our colors, they're on. It's just the name. It's just the brand name, but they don't deserve to be called up, man. There's better players in form in Liga MX playing right now, and it's just a shame that we had some really poor performances by HH, Salcedo, Pizarro. Like some of these players, man, I don't know why we call them up, but they're not deserving right now. But the problem is there's no competition, especially in the striker position. And that's why I'm saying, hey, you know what, Funes Mori, you're Mexican in my book. We need you, bro. Go in there, and that should be light a fire under all these actual like Mexican-born strikers. And like, all right, we're gonna call up a naturalizado. All right, I'm gonna go in there and try and score 10 goals tomorrow. He says you got to light a fire under someone's ass, but if there's no competition, then they're just gonna keep playing mediocre football. What's going on? I hear something.
Oh, shoot. Sorry.
Oh, it's all good. Beto's watching some 2DN highlights.
No, what were you saying?
No, I'm just saying that there's right now all the players that are being called up, they're very comfortable because they're resting on their laurels, but they're not actually in form, and we don't have enough competition. We don't have enough depth.
Oh, yeah.
And put it in Chiqui's words, we have a bunch of Toyotas, not enough Ferraris.
Yeah, if you have enough,
you should have said Bochos.
I was gonna say Tsuru, but no. If you have enough Toyotas though, maybe one tries to become a Lexus or something. But they're just cruising as Toyotas.
I have a question for you guys. So tomorrow is the Olympic qualifier final, Honduras versus Mexico. They're both in. They're both going to Tokyo, but the expectation is that Mexico wins this tournament, right?
Yes. Especially being host.
Yeah. expectation. They need to win. They should win.
Well, I mean, should there's no guarantees, and Honduras, and I think this is a mistake we make as fans. We always menospreciar. I don't know the word in English. But we'll see the regional rivals, and we always like look down on them, and a lot of times some of these teams will end up with really talented players. And we saw it with Costa Rica. They had that good World Cup run. And so, yeah, Honduras has been a while since they've had, but in the past, they've had some really strong teams. And so we could be seeing that, we could be seeing that they have a good generation, and not, it shouldn't be seen as a fracaso of the team, because it's a one game. That's the other thing. You lose one match, and everything is seen as a failure with the media.
Oh yeah.
Fracasotote and all this, and it sends the teams into a panic. Losing the final when you're already qualified, I don't see it as a fracaso compared to like the U.S. missing out on 3 straight Olympics. That's the fracaso right there. That you got bested on the one game. It's hard to tell because it's one game. If it was like NBA, where it was best out of 6, then you would get a better idea. But if it's just one match, 2 bad calls, the ball bounces wrong a few times, and that could be game. So that's my take on that.
I can sort of agree, but I have no problem calling it a failure. The players should mentally know that yes, it's a failure, but don't get all depressed about it. Just continue on and improve. It's like going back to the Toyota. We got too many Toyotas just cruising. They're not feeling the competition. They're not feeling the pressure of improving because they're making big bucks in Liga MX and they're guaranteed starting positions on national team and all this stuff. So they have no fear of riding the pine or not being called up. When you have no fear or no repercussions of losing or no criticism, then you're just like, okay, we just lost. Okay, no problem. Continue on. You need to have difficulty. You need to have repercussions for not doing what you're supposed to, so that you won't let it happen again, and you can get better.
Yeah,
not to say like
I
the
agree.
press doesn't exaggerate and stuff, but yeah, the press is another issue.
The
Going all
expectations,
crazy.
the expectations tomorrow is that Mexico wins. It's just a nice little cherry on top of a very good performance in this Olympic qualifiers. Very optimistic about their chances of even winning a gold medal. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I mean, this is a very talented team. Be very curious to see who Jimmy Lozano calls up. The 3 overage players. I would like to see a goalie. I would like to see a center back and a striker, just to help out there. The senior side is also playing tomorrow. I actually didn't know that. They're playing against Costa Rica in Austria, and that's actually at 1 p.m. Pacific time. So not too much excited about that one as I am for the Olympic one, especially after that loss against Wales. But we usually do pretty decent against Costa Rica. I'll be curious to see what that lineup looks like tomorrow.
I recall World Cup qualifier against Costa Rica in Costa Rica, where the very coach of this team, Jimmy Lozano, hit a free kick to win the game. I think it was 2-1. And that was a tough
World
Costa
Cup
Rican.
qualifier, you said?
Yeah, that was a tough Costa Rican team.
Under Bora Milutinovic.
No, I don't think so. I think it was La Volpe.
¿Qué es La Volpe? Didn't he still get cut out? Didn't he still not make it to the World Cup?
Jimmy didn't make the World Cup roster. Yeah.
Yeah, he won that match, but then they still left him out.
They did.
He was doing good.
Ron would know, but he censored himself.
Yeah, so we have those two matches tomorrow, and then Liga MX will be back in action.
What did you ask? What did you ask, Joel?
That Jimmy Lozano, Chiquis was saying the World Cup qualifying match against Costa Rica, and Lozano wins it with.
Yeah, he scored a hell of a free kick.
Was that with La Volpe or?
No, that was La Volpe.
It was La Volpe.
I thought La Volpe was going to take him to the World Cup.
And he left. He left him out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of my surprising. Yeah, it was. He had been playing good. He must have known something.
I thought that Osorno and Jimmy Lozano were like shoo-ins, but then especially after the 2003 World Gold Cup, But no, Osorno was more worried about playing music than playing football. But good for him,
I found a really, really bad quality video of that goal on YouTube, and oh boy, I don't know which pixel's the ball, but it's a very, very nice goal. Reminds me of when Ramon Morales scored against Argentina in the Copa America. That top right corner, just beautiful.
He also scored a really nice goal against Brazil, if I'm not mistaken, right? Morales, free kick.
I think so.
At the Copa America.
Was it Copa?
I think it was Copa America.
In 2004 Copa America, that's when Brazil beat us. What was it, like 4-0?
4-1 or something, 5-1.
Yeah. At the move at the.
But that was.
Go ahead.
That was one of the last times, or if not the only time that we beat Argentina in that in that tournament.
That was at the Venezuela Copa
Peru.
America.
No.
And then was it in Venezuela where they changed the rules? And
04 was Peru.
They made Mexico play Brazil even though they weren't supposed to.
Venezuela was what in 2007?
No, the one I was talking about where Ramon scored that goal against Argentina, that was Peru 2004. And then that's when we lost to Brazil in I think it was the semis. Quarterfinals.
This one was in the second round. I remember the Venezuela one. You guys don't remember that? They CONMEBOL changed the rule. They had some weird rule.
About what?
Because I think Mexico was in the group with Venezuela, and I think Mexico won the group, and then they still had them face Brazil.
Huh. I'll have to. Was it 07?
Man, my mind is.
I think it was Venezuela.
Yeah, it's in 07. Yeah, you're right.
Venezuela, Peru, Uruguay, Bolivia, Mexico, Brazil, Chile, Ecuador.
God, man. No, Mexico still made it. What am I thinking of then?
We beat Mexico. We beat Brazil 2-0. Then we beat Ecuador. And then we tied Chile. And then in the semis, we lost to Argentina 3-0.
Oh wait, Mexico wasn't even in. What am I thinking of then? Man, I'm losing it. Ron,
your mind's playing tricks on you, bro.
I remember a Copa America where they made Mexico face Brazil, but I think they weren't supposed to.
Oh, yeah.
I gotta ask Google, man. And I'm glad I checked because I was thinking it was. Wait.
While you think of that,
yeah, I was. I was thinking it's gonna be 3 a.m. I'll be still like.
Just very quickly before we wrap up, just want to go over the fixtures this weekend. Liga MX is back in action with Puebla Mazatlan on Friday, 6:30 p.m. And then Juárez versus Cruz Azul, Atlas Tijuana, América versus Necaxa, which I actually have some news about Necaxa. Monterrey, Atlético San Luis, Pumas, Pachuca, Chivas will play against Santos, Querétaro Tigres, and León Toluca. I forgot if we had talked about this, but there was a rumor about Red Bull potentially buying Necaxa.
Didn't it get like discredited by Necaxa? Like they did a tweet saying there's, but again, a lot of
They
times
denied it. Yeah.
they'll say that. A lot of times they'll say that, just because they don't want complications with the dealings or whatever.
I don't know like where this rumor came from, or I don't know, but Red Bull does have teams in Brazil, New York. I think they have a team in like Australia or something. They have teams everywhere. And I had tweeted a while ago, like, oh man, this would be the perfect opportunity for Toros Neza to return under the Red Bull name. It would have just been perfect. But instead, it's Necaxa, and I guess from the F1, Red Bull signed Mexican pilot Sergio Checo Perez. So they do have a Mexican that they are sponsoring. But as far as the Necaxa possible merger or acquisition, it's been denied. So we'll see. It would be cool though, don't you guys think? Seeing some foreign investment.
No, yeah, we were wrong with talking about that. How it's eventually the league is gonna need it, just because the lack of investors. And we kind of seen it a little bit with San Luis, but I don't know. Like, doesn't seem like Atletico is all in. I think a company like Red Bull would be able to just pour more money into that.
Personally, I'd like to see Necaxa just, you know, rebrand itself. It's like the logo of Don Ramon. Don't really have. Honestly, I feel bad for Necaxa, man. They've, that's just another case of a club that has basically never really been able to establish their. It's sad because they're historical.
Yeah, it seems like Necaxa, they had a rich history at one point. I know that in the 90s they were a really big club. They had a lot of big names there that came and went.
They were, but they were subsidized by, or they were, by Televisa.
Oh.
See, a lot of people think that Necaxa had lost fan base when Televisa took over, and that's really not the case. Necaxa basically lost their fan base when they decided they didn't want to be joined the league when it first started back in '43. So for like 8 years, Necaxa did not exist. So basically, all of Necaxa's fan base, they started supporting other teams in Mexico City and stuff like that.
Oh wow.
And they actually came back, and Spanish based team, Asturias and España, when they decided to leave.
Españita.
Yeah, so but, little by little, they tried to rebrand and stuff like that. In the '70s, they were who was it, Atlético Español? They actually final this taken. Yeah, they did. And then just drifting away and stuff like that, and eventually Televisa was able to get them. But Televisa, they put a lot of money to them. They like you said, man, they were stacked in the. I was in Naga, Evil. They had Aspe. They
Luis Hernandez, Cuauhtémoc.
Yeah, they had
Adolfo Rios.
Yep.
They beat Chivas in the '98 final. I'll never forget that. But one thing I have learned. So we were talking about punishment, about being the worst team in the league with Atlas. Atlas, they have the worst coefficient. They will not be able to participate in Liguilla. So they're going to have to give up their spot to somebody in the 13th position. But it looks like the three worst teams in the league will be fined 70 million pesos. That money will be sent to the Liga de Expansión to help sustain and build that league. So it looks like they're they're taking serious steps of trying to have a sustainable second division and maybe eventually open up the pro regulation back again. But as of right now, they're kind of just trying to get the foundation together. But Tapatio is doing really well in the second division. So I wonder if that money would go into Chivas then if Tapatio wins the championship.
Nothing's going to change, Jaime.
No?
No. There's whole. You have to remember that, when Liga MX started to do that coefficient, if you think about it, the time frame was 3 years. 3 years, six
4 seasons, right?
6 seasons. 3 years. So I mean, technically, that gives. I mean, people said, "Oh, it was done because they were trying to copy Argentina, and they wanted to help the big teams." No, it actually helps the smaller teams and the mid-table teams because, in theory, you're able to have a bad season, or a bad, and still able to recover. And I maintain, I don't think that promotion and relegation is ever going to work in Mexico unless you start getting more investors.
I found it, Ron. I don't know if you remember 2004 Copa America.
Yeah.
So Mex won the group. They were in a group with Argentina and Uruguay. And Ecuador, which at the time was pretty good. It was a bit of like the group of death. And they won the group. And so back then you had third place teams that would also qualify. So Uruguay and Costa Rica were the third place teams. And I think Mexico had to go up against Costa Rica, but they ended up going against Brazil, which was the second place team. But under the Copa, their tiebreakers for third place, it's goal score. So they had, no one remembers this. Hello?
Oh, sorry there. What happened?
I got lost, you guys. Whatever, ya me voy.
No, I just the thing I remember most the thing I remember most about that Copa America was La Volpe basically quitting, saying that he quit the team like at the was it at the airport, and then when he gets back to Mexico, they said, "Hey, you quit?" No, I didn't. And then he's like, there's footage of him saying it,
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
yeah, and it's crazy because he, makes won a group with Argentina and Uruguay. Uruguay ends up in third place. Argentina's runner-up, and then Brazil made the final. But I'm pretty sure that CONMEBOL screwed them over when they did the draw, and I think they had to face Costa Rica, and then I forgot what they said. And they ended up playing Brazil, which was like, man, you win the group of death, and then they throw you that beast. It's like
there's no winning, man.
I felt cheated, man. I felt cheated there.
They will always find a way to give us a disadvantage. I don't know if it's because they're just threatened by the possibility of a guest, winning your tournament. But I mean, I think about the Colombia final in 2001, man. Like, that was the closest. I think also the first year, right? We were invited to the Copa America. We went to the final.
Yeah.
So it's like,
yeah,
we almost did it, man.
Because looking at comparison with Paraguay, they both made 7 points. They both had a +2 goal differential, but goal scores, which was one of the tiebreakers, how many goals did you score overall? They scored 4 compared to 5 of Mex. So that should have placed Mexico as the higher seed, and then they would have gotten one of the weak teams, one of the weak third place teams. But then they it's like, here you go, you get Brazil, which, that sucked.
One last question before we wrap tonight's fantastic episode. What do you think is the highest achievement that Mexico has done? Is it the gold medal, or is it the Copa Confederaciones Cup?
I would say Confederaciones, but
Starting
it's
the wave.
probably now the gold medal just because FIFA canceled the confederations. Uh, so that sucks. It's like they took away that one big trophy that they had. But that was a big, that trophy. It was getting big. I don't know why they decided to do away with. I mean, I know they say to make the clubs World Cup, but it felt like a good tournament. I liked it. It was almost like a World Cup preview. Um, and it had grown since it was Copa del Rey FAT, and it became this, the champions of every region, the UEFA, Europe and South America, and it was all the champion teams. So that's a good cup to have.
What about you guys? What do you guys think?
I agree. Confederations. Still Confederations, even though it's gone away or whatever. The matchups and everything were, like Joel said, sort of like the preview before the World Cup against the European teams and all that. And then the Olympics is sort of like a...
No, and it was like the World Cup, the previous World Cup winner, the winner of Copa America, the winner of the Euro Cup, the winner of the African. So you had like
all the winners
teams that were just and it made it saucy, extra chile right there.
Ron, what do you think? Ron's on mute.
Ron.
No, I think I think the Olympics, because you had a Brazil that was just dying to get. That was the last trophy that they needed. They've won just about every other tournament that in soccer has.
Yeah.
And they were gunning for a while that Olympic medal. It was nice that nobody denied them.
But Ron, it's still like a youth tournament, so it takes some of it away,
Didn't they win the Rio one though?
The what?
The one in Rio?
Well, that's when they finally won it.
Oh.
Yeah, that's when they finally won it. But winning in London, at Wembley.
Yeah, that was huge.
Home of football. Historic.
It is, but I mean, look, when we look at the list of winners of Confederaciones, and so you have Brazil with 4.
Damn.
4 Confederation, France with 2, Argentina 1, Mexico 1, Germany 1, and then Denmark in '95.
First one. Yeah.
And so, first one when it became confederations, because it had been
something else.
I don't know if it was still Copa del Rey FAT. And the thing about Denmark is they were invited. I mean, because
Saudi Arabia
dropped off, and then some team dropped off, and they came in last minute. But still, man, that's an elite list to be a part of. And I mean, just to be Mac's name is etched in that cup, man. It's pretty nice.
I will say, we hosted that year, so it was, we had our fans on our back, and
but
Mexico always does well when they host something. Look at the World Cups, the farthest we've ever gone. We're both in our backyard.
Yeah, but we can take credit because a lot of countries have. That's how they've won tournaments as hosts.
So you think the Carlsberg Cup wasn't the most important achievement?
The what?
The Carlsberg Cup.
What's that?
You guys don't even remember? This was back in like '99. They played a game. They played a tournament over there in Hong Kong.
Oh,
Mexico.
I do remember the games. Weren't the games like at 4 in the morning or something?
Yeah, dude. It was like they played in Hong Kong, and what was it? Abundi scored. I want to say Rafa Marquez scored.
Wasn't it bad? Like, ooh, I, I,
1999 Lunar Year Cup,
Is that what it's
uh,
called now?
also known as the
I
Carlsberg
remember
Cup,
it. Yeah, that's
held in Hong
That's what I
Kong.
remember. I remember that's how I remember the Carlsberg because of
I
the.
guess for the
beer.
Asians.
That's good
I guess when
advertising,
they
man. You
marketed in
remember the
Asia, it
beer?
was the lunar. Yeah,
It was
it sounds fancy too.
Egypt, Bulgaria, Hong Kong, Mexico, and then Mexico beat Egypt. Huh. Interesting. I think that the when we won the gold medal, I didn't really think much of it. You know, it never really sunk in how big of a deal it was. Like
Oh yeah.
it's because like when I think about the Olympics, I don't really think about soccer. Yeah, it's always been one of those things like, oh, okay, you know.
Well,
And I think
I don't blame you.
yeah. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Go on. No, I don't blame you. I don't blame you for that. I think what made it special is the stuff that Ron named, that it was at Wembley and that it was against Brazil, and a Brazil that was taking it very serious. They had Neymar. That was the one trophy missing from their cabinet, and so that's what made it. But we've seen other winners in the past of the Olympics where it was sort of like, um, it hasn't always been all the top teams, and so you kind of knew for a while it wasn't taken as serious.
They had Marcelo, they had Oscar, Neymar, Hulk, Danilo, Alexandro, Pato. I mean, they had a stacked team, man. And we had Oribe Peralta. It's just crazy. Now now that I look at that accomplishment, I will say I like the Confederations Cup. I think it's more prestigious than the Olympics, but I understand that moving forward, that trophy will be looked as like, wow, like the epitome of Mexican soccer. I do hope that we can eventually get back into Copa America and win one, just to stick it to the Comebol. And of course the dream of like winning World Cup. I'm not delusional, man. That's a very tough tournament to win. But if we had any chance of winning it, it would be in 2026 in our backyard. Because even if Mexico, I know the final won't be in Mexico, it'll be in the United States. It'll still be like home, because USA is like another home.
Every game is gonna be a home game.
It's not like they're gonna put us in Canada.
Yeah. I think even there.
Even there.
Even there, man. Mike's has some really hardcore fans that travel everywhere.
I don't know, man. Canada doesn't let people with DUIs in, so I feel like that's like that's like half our fan base, bro.
They still get in, dude.
They'll still get in.
Still get in.
Is that a shot at? Is that a shot at ping?
That's a shot at like everybody, bro.
Hey.
If you're Mexican, you're born with like a DUI, bro. That's just
That's racist, dude.
And with that, we'll wrap up tonight's episode. Special shout out to Carlos Eustis for joining us tonight. Do you guys have any closing thoughts before we wrap this up?
Nah, I'm spent. I'm glad I figured out the Copa America. Was going to be driving me crazy, but no final thoughts. I think it was a good show, and I think the feminine stuff, I didn't think it was going to be this interesting, and it ended up being a bit more than I thought. So I really enjoyed it. I'm gonna say that.
Yeah, me too. Good stuff.
Ron, any closing thoughts before you sign off tonight? Appreciate you staying up so late. I know you're on the East Coast.
Yeah, it's 2:00 now. No, I mean it was interesting. I still maintain, my position regarding the funding how to go about the women's game in terms of I don't think that anything just be sex or for business to be profitable. They have to be financial. I think it's got to be.
You're cutting in and out, bro.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm having technical. Sorry, guys.
It's all
We
good.
need a GoFundMe to pay Ron.
Someone's
Ron's,
got to pay his
phone
cell phone
bill.
bill, bro.
I don't know what happened, dude. My gaming
Yes.
headphone and stuff like that. Just,
Cricket,
it
what
was
is-
fine, you know.
It's,
Sorry, man.
It's all good.
it's a,
Another shout out to our comment section today. Sorry we weren't able to address the comments on YouTube, but thank you to the listeners, Alvaro, DJ OJ Music, Firm65. Looks like they were all listening in to the women's stuff, learning some stuff as well. Real One as well. Thank you for your comments, and hope everyone has a great night. Make sure to watch the Mexico games tomorrow, and we will catch you on the next one.